Hey everyone, in today's video I want to talk just a little bit about the end times. Shalom everybody, and welcome to Beit Tefillah. Before I get started with this video, I want to apologize for any background noise you may be hearing. It's July 19th when I'm making this video, and it's 100 degrees right now in the shade in southwest Arkansas. It's hot. You can see how red my face is. I'm cooked. We're all cooked here. And if I didn't have my AC in the studio running full tilt, I couldn't be out here making a video, that's for sure. So hopefully this microphone is good enough to pick up my voice loud enough over this AC running. But like I said, I apologize if there's any background noise from that. Hopefully it's not too bad. I get requests quite often to do videos about the end times stuff, and I rarely talk about it, so this video will likely stand as my one and only video on the topic. Even though I get asked a lot of questions quite often about the end times, the reason why I really don't delve into the issue too much is I think we should be focusing on walking according to the way that Elohim delivered to his people. We should be focusing on that instead of worrying whether or not we are truly in the end times. I mean, I figure if we're not in idolatry and we are walking according to Torah, then we don't have that much to worry about in the end times, as we're going to be Elohim's people, right? You know, and that's not saying we're not going to see or be drawn into a lot of very frightening situations, but at the very end of time, Elohim promises that he's going to collect us, he's going to collect his people from anywhere under the heavens that they've been scattered, and from that point on, we won't have anything to worry about. Does that make sense? You know, and I'm sure we all know that there's a lot going on in the world today that makes it seem like a pretty frightening time to be living in. But I'm sure there's plenty of other times throughout history where a lot of people thought that very same thing as well. For example, if we go back in time just over 100 years during the 1918 Spanish flu pandemic, I'm sure many people back then felt scared and that they surely must be living in the end times, because something like 50 million people died worldwide. That's pretty bad. And today we've got the threat of this coronavirus thing, and it's hard to separate truth from fiction with that, and it does seem like the governments of the world are using it to spread fear and take control, and that's really all I want to say about the coronavirus today. But we also have lots of riots going on lately, and there's all these drug addictions and all this other violence and buildings being burned and cars being torched and everything, and there's abortions and irrational behavior and wickedness, and there's human trafficking and pedophilia and all sorts of disgusting things that are being pushed in front of our faces all the time. It's absolutely wicked and horrific in this day and age. You know, and occasionally I will read or I'll hear some people that no longer believe in the New Testament that will still use ideas from it to assume that we must be in the end times. And these are kind of what I like to call mental leftovers from when we used to believe in that stuff, and it's perfectly normal to repeat some of that purely out of habit. A good example of that is this next verse, where this Yeshua character is supposedly giving his disciples some signs of the end from Matthew 24:7. For nation shall rise against nation and reign against reign, and there shall be scarcities of food and deadly diseases and earthquakes in places. Wow, well that's some pretty heavy stuff right there. Let's think about it. Nation rising against nation. Well, that's been happening since time immemorial, so that's nothing new. And you got food scarcities, deadly diseases, and earthquakes. Like the planet hasn't been experiencing any of that for thousands and thousands of years. So those aren't really signs, as those things could be attributed to almost any time in history. But a lot of people think they fit that today's day and age because they live in today's day and age. They don't live in history. It's kind of like for people who believe in astrology. If you ever read any of that craziness in the newspaper or wherever you can read about it, it's almost like every single sign seems to fit with you because that's the way they make it, so you get suckered into believing it. Well, this is kind of the same thing. There's always been earthquakes, there's always been wars, there's always been famines and disease and all that stuff. It's part of the curses of a fallen world, right? So those aren't signs. So if we leave the book of Matthew and flip ahead all the way through a whole bunch more lies, we'll wind up at the book of Revelation. Here we find a whole lot more craziness with all sorts of puzzles and hints and clues that are all about even more lies, like an antichrist and a mark of the beast. And this is all nonsense, and I made 2 videos about both of those doctrines. And I'm not going to get into all that baloney today, but I will add a link to those videos below in the description for those who haven't seen them yet or tested them against the word of Elohim. But I just wanted to get into a few things today that we're told in the Tanakh that will happen near or at the time of the end. Let's start with Zephaniah 3:9. For then I shall return to the people a clean language, so that they call on the name of Yahweh to serve him with one consent. Elohim said, I will return to them a pure language. He didn't say, I will give them a new one. You don't return something unless you've taken it. And Elohim sure did take it, as described in Genesis chapter 11, verses 1 to 9. And all the earth had one language and one speech. And it came to be, as they set out from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, which was the original name for Babel or Babylon. And they dwelt there. And they said to each other, Come, let us make bricks and bake them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and they had asphalt for mortar. And they said, Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower whose top is in the heavens, and make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered all over the face of the earth. Now let me pause for a second and reread that last part. Let us build ourselves a city and a tower whose top is in the heavens, and make a name for ourselves, lest we be scattered over all the face of the earth. Let's remember that as we continue. Then Yahweh came down to see the city and the tower which the sons of men had built. And Yahweh said, Look, they are one people, and they have one language, and this is what they begin to do. And now they are not going to be withheld from doing whatever they plan to do. Come, let us go there and confuse their language, so they do not understand one another's speech. And Yahweh scattered them from there all over the face of the earth, and they left off building the city. This is why its name was called Babel, because there Yahweh confused the language of all the earth, and from there Yahweh scattered them all over the face of the earth. So I thought that was an interesting point, that clearly the people were afraid of being scattered all over the face of the earth, yet that's exactly what Elohim did. Now the Hebrew word Babel is derived from a verb which means to confuse. So that's what Elohim did. He confounded or confused their language so they couldn't finish their plans to build their tower. Okay, they couldn't finish the tower. The people couldn't finish it as Elohim took from them the one language they had, or in most Bibles it'll say one lip, one speech, one language, and he gave them many different languages and confused the people. At the end of time, when Elohim's people are gathered together, we will all be of one mind to obey Elohim, and he will return to us one language where we can honor, praise, worship, and obey him, and all with one speech. Okay, when we read the book of Daniel, we can read what Daniel was told in Daniel 8:17, where it says, Understand, son of man, for the vision is for the time of the end. While we are told in different parts of the Tanakh what things will be like in the next kingdom, whether we're reading Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Isaiah, for example, it's not often that something is told to us about the end times in the Tanakh. So we should probably pay attention to that if that's a subject we're interested in, okay? But before we get to Daniel's vision, let's take a look at Nebuchadnezzar's dream that he had first. I'm sure we all remember this dream of a statue that Nebuchadnezzar had, and Elohim told Daniel its interpretation so that Daniel could tell the king, which wound up sparing his life, right? We can read about Nebuchadnezzar's dream and the interpretation of it from Daniel 2:31 to 42. You, O sovereign, were looking on and saw a great image. This great image and its brightness excellent was standing before you, and its form was awesome. This image's head was of fine gold, its chest and arms of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs of iron, its feet partly of iron and partly of clay. You were looking on until a stone was cut out without hands and smote the image on its feet of iron and clay and broke them in pieces. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, and the silver and the gold were crushed together and became like chaff from the summer threshing floors. The wind took them away so that no trace of them was found. And the stone that smote the image became a great mountain and filled all the earth. This is the dream and its interpretation we declare before the sovereign. You, O sovereign, are a sovereign of sovereigns, for the Eloah of the heavens has given you a reign, a power and strength and preciousness, and wherever the children of men dwell, or the beasts of the field and the birds of the heavens, he has given them into your hand, and he has made you ruler over them all. You are the head of gold. Now I want to pause there for a second. A lot of people don't know what this pertains to. If you hear how this king of Babylon was made so bright, and he was the king of kings, and Elohim had made him ruler over all. Watch this video I did, The Truth About Satan, and read the part in the book of Isaiah about Lucifer. which isn't talking about a devil, it's talking about a fallen Babylonian king. And tell me if that doesn't line up. A lot of people don't put that together, and I really don't want to say any more than that in this video, but it's pretty interesting, okay? Or you can just read that chapter in Isaiah for yourself. It's only mentioned one time, Lucifer, and it's a message for the king of Babel. So you may want to check that out. Anyway, continuing. After you rises up another reign lower than yours, and another third reign of bronze that rules over all the earth. And the fourth reign is as strong as iron, because iron crushes and shatters all. So like iron that breaks in pieces, it crushes and breaks all these. Yet as you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, the reign is to be divided. But some of the strength of the iron is to be in it, because you saw the iron mixed with muddy clay. And as the toes of the feet were partly of iron and partly of clay, so the reign is partly strong and partly brittle. Now, when Nebuchadnezzar first had this dream about the statue, he obviously didn't know what it meant, and we know that it wasn't really about a statue, but that it represented something else, the kingdoms of the world, from that particular time in history forward throughout the future to the end times. The head of the statue was gold, which stood for Babylon. The chest and the arms of silver represented Persia, its belly and thighs of bronze represented Greece, and the very last kingdom, with legs of iron and feet of iron and clay, represented the final kingdom on earth, Rome. And as we hear about the different levels of this statue in the dream, it would almost appear that there's 5 reigns or kingdoms, yet there are only 4 of them, because it talks about the legs of iron and then the feet of iron and clay. But remember, there was no commas, there was no punctuation in Hebrew, so this was all run together, because there is no talk about a 5th reign or a 5th kingdom, okay? And that also matches the 4th and final beast that Daniel saw in his vision, which I'm going to get to here in a minute. But let's read the part about the 4th reign one more time, and we'll read the verse that comes after it as well in Daniel 2, 40 to 43. And the 4th reign is as strong as iron, because iron crushes and shatters all. So like iron that breaks in pieces, it crushes and breaks all of these. Yet as you saw the feet and toes, partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, the reign is to be divided. But some of the strength of the iron is to be in it, because you saw the iron mixed with the muddy clay. And as the toes of the feet were partly of iron and partly of clay, so the reign is partly strong and partly brittle. As you saw the iron mixed with muddy clay, they are mixing themselves with the seed of men, which simply means children or offspring or descendants, but they are not clinging to each other, even as iron does not mix with clay. Now, in regards to that, I must admit that at present time, the world's countries or kingdoms don't seem to mesh or to adhere to each other very well, but if we pay attention, it does seem like they're operating very similarly in nature, especially with everything that's going on today. So this could very well be the feet of iron and the clay in the vision. Possibly. Well, let's go back to the book of Daniel and learn a little bit more. 5 chapters later, we read about Daniel's own vision that he described in Daniel chapter 7, verses 2 to 7. Daniel spoke and said, I was looking in my vision by night, and I saw the 4 winds of the heavens stirring up the great sea. And 4 great beasts came up from the sea, different from one another. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I was looking until its wings were plucked off, and it was lifted up from the earth and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and it was given a man's heart. And see another beast, a second like a bear, and it was raised up on one side and had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. And they said to it, Arise, devour much flesh. After this I looked and saw another like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird. The beast also had 4 heads, and rule was given to it. After this I looked in the night visions, and I saw a 4th beast, fearsome and burly, exceedingly strong, and it had great iron teeth. Notice that word iron in this one too for the last beast. It devoured and crushed and trampled down the rest with its feet, and it was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. So that was Daniel's night vision, and the beasts that were represented in it were as follows. The lion was Babylon, the bear represented Persia, the leopard was Greece, and the 4th fearsome beast was Rome. Wow, exactly like the statue as in Nebuchadnezzar's dream. So that vision that Daniel had was another witness and some reinforcement from Elohim that, yeah, this was really going to come to pass. This was kind of a timeline looking down from their present day to the end of time. So if we look back in history here, some of the following years are approximate, but most are fairly accurate. The kingdom of Babylon was conquered by the Persians around 539 BC. Persia was conquered by the Greeks around 449 BC. Greece was defeated by Rome around 146 BC. So Rome is the last kingdom. All of the prior kingdoms were all destroyed by armies of men, but how will Rome or this last kingdom be destroyed? We can read that from Nebuchadnezzar's dream in Daniel 2, 34-35. You were looking on until a stone was cut without hands, and it smote the image on its feet of iron and clay and broke them in pieces. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, and the silver, and the gold were crushed together and became like chaff from the summer threshing floors. And the wind took them away, so that no trace of them was found. This time, Elohim destroys himself, the final kingdom. Remember what Daniel was told about in his vision? Daniel 8:17, understand, son of man, for the vision is for the time of the end. And the fourth beast that persecutes the set-apart ones at the time of the end, or Rome, does the following as described in Daniel 7:23 and 25. This is what he said. The fourth beast is the fourth rain on earth, which is different from all other rains, and it devours all the earth, tramples it down, and crushes it. And it speaks words against the Most High, and it wears out the set-apart ones of the Most High, and it intends to change appointed times and law. Wow. So let's consider this. Today we live in a Greco-Roman society. Origins of the names of our months of the year come from Roman gods, Roman emperors, or numbers on the Roman calendar. The model of the Roman Republic led to our current legislative model and modern democracy. The Roman legal system is still the basis for most European legal system and laws. In the UK and in the USA, common law evolved from original Roman law. The Roman alphabet is the most widely used alphabet and system of writing in our world today. It is the official script of almost all Western European languages, some Eastern European languages, along with some non-European languages. The Roman alphabet is probably the most widely used out of all of the Roman contributions to our modern world. And we all know how huge the media and the entertainment business is in today's world. Theaters, concert, and sporting events are all Roman contributions to the modern world. The Roman leaders easily recognized that a large percentage of unoccupied people was a serious threat to their power. With their development of mass entertainment, the citizens were assured to stay busy and occupied, just like they were sitting in front of a TV, a computer, or their cell phones. The Roman Catholic Church, headquartered at the Vatican in Rome, has changed times and laws for over 1,000 years. They are the biggest religion on earth, the mother to lawless Christianity and all of her harlot daughters. They led the world into praying to Mary and the saints and their messianic God-man and all of its rituals and its incorporated pagan holidays that Elohim never delivered to us but warned us about. Once again, let's hear Daniel 7:25. And it speaks words against the Most High, and it wears out the set-apart ones of the Most High, and it intends to change appointed times and law. Well, it certainly has, hasn't it? And according to Daniel's vision, when time is up, in Daniel 7:27, the reign and the rulership and the greatness of the reigns under all the heavens shall be given to the people, the set-apart ones of the Most High. The reign is given to the people, the children of Yisra'el. Also in the book of Daniel, we can read about knowledge increasing in the end times in Daniel 12:4. But you, Daniel, hide the words and seal the book until the time of the end. Many shall diligently search, and knowledge shall increase. Okay, well, there's yet another mention of the time of the end. And knowledge is increasing during this time because people are diligently searching for it. And we're seeing a lot of this today with knowledge of the Torah and the prophets increasing all over the world as people aren't falling for the lies of religion any longer. They are learning much and gaining this knowledge as they are diligently searching for it. We can read in Jeremiah 6:16, Thus says Yahweh, stand in the ways and see, and ask for the old or ancient paths, where the good way is, and walk in it. Elohim describes his ways as the good way and a path that we should walk. That means we are to keep moving, seeking, learning, and searching for it. Now in the end times, when Elohim gathers his people for the second Exodus, his people Yisra'el will be easy to identify as they'll be doing the very same thing that the children of Yisrael were doing when they were instructed by Elohim through Moses when they were led out of Egypt. They will learn and keep all of Elohim's Torah, taking hold of his entire covenant and making that their way of life, just as many of us are doing today. Let's also acknowledge that when Elohim freed his people from bondage in Egypt, that he was also freeing them from idolatry and they followed only Elohim. Now, they did mess up making their golden calf, and they sure paid for that dearly. But in the end times, the children of Yisra'el, or the people that belong to Elohim, will have no other gods, mighty ones, or idols. They will only follow Yahweh. I'm sure a lot of us said for quite a few years, I wish Elohim would just say, time's up and end this already. The world is wicked enough. I know I said that plenty of times. The fact is, I am so grateful that he did not end it back then. Think of how many of us were still in pagan idolatry and sitting in church on Sunday morning. We've seen a huge surge of people flowing out of the churches, out of the New Testament, and out of idolatry. More and more of our brothers and sisters are waking up to the lies and are coming into Elohim's covenant and becoming Yisra'el. What a wonderful thing to see. And they're not being quiet about it either. They're making quite a noisy multitude, praising Elohim and telling others about what they have learned as they move forward with Torah guiding their way, just as in the days of old. 1 Chronicles 15:28. So all Yisrael brought up the Ark of the Covenant of Yahweh with shouting and with a voice of a shofar, with trumpets and with cymbals, sounding with harps and lyres. 1 Samuel 4, verse 5. And when the Ark of the Covenant of Yahweh came into the camp, all Yisrael shouted so loudly that the earth shook. It's hard for me to read that one. That must have been something to see. Isaiah 13:4. The noise of an uproar in the mountains like that of many people, a noise of uproar in the reigns of nations gathered together. Yahweh of hosts is gathering an army for battle. So this end times is all in Elohim's time schedule, of course. People in various horrible situations must have thought it was the end for hundreds or even thousands of years before our time. So the question is, are we really in the end times, or just another cycle of things that happens in the world over time? All I know is the more time we get, the more brothers and sisters we're going to get, as the family of Yisrael is going to keep growing as more people wake up, see the lies, and come out of religion and idolatry. But our days are individually numbered. One day it will be our own personal end times, and the rest of the world will go on for, who knows? Well, Elohim knows. And if we truly know Elohim, then we don't have anything to worry about. Well, that's all I have for today. Thanks for watching, everybody, and being a part of Beit Tefillah. Shalom to all my brothers and sisters that are scattered worldwide and are truly Yisra'el. Everybody be blessed and have a wonderful day.